Hello my lovely friends, it's Emma, just a girl who loves Elvis. And before we begin today, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt like people thought they knew you, but they only knew your name? Not your heart, not your fears, not the quiet parts of you that nobody sees. Just the story they created. And that's what this episode is about. Because Lisa Marie Presley lived inside a story the world thought it owned. And yet, most people never really knew her at all. Not the woman who laughed softly. Not the woman who loved deeply. Not the woman who carried tenderness in a world that demanded toughness. They knew the name, but not the soul. And today I want to talk about that. Not the headlines. Not the assumptions, not the versions of her people felt entitled to, but the woman behind the name. This is the final episode in this chapter of our Lisa Marie series. Not an ending, but a pause. A place to breathe. A place to honour. Because her story deserves more than speed, more than sound bites, more than noise. It deserves gentleness. So wherever you are, whether you're curled up somewhere quiet, holding a warm mug, or just needing a softer place to land today, I'm really glad you're here. Let's sit together. I've always felt when it comes to Lisa Marie. Something quiet, something heavy, something unspoken. Is that the world was always in such a rush with her. A rush to label, a rush to explain, a rush to define, but never a rush to understand. And I think that's one of the loneliest things a person can experience. When people think they know you, but they've never really met you. They know your name, they know your family, they know your history, but they don't know your heart. They don't know what makes you feel safe. They don't know what makes you laugh when no one's watching. They don't know what keeps you awake at night. And Lisa Marie lived like that, surrounded by attention, yet deeply unseen. And that changes a person. Because when you grow up misunderstood, you learn something very early on. You learn that being soft can feel dangerous. You learn that being open can invite pain. You learn that protecting your inner world becomes a kind of survival. And so people begin to call you distant. But what they're really seeing is self-preservation. They call it cold, but what it really is careful. They call it aloof, but what it really is guarded. I don't think Lisa Marie was distant. She was protecting the parts of herself the world didn't know how to hold gently. And I think that's something many of us can relate to. Because haven't we all at some point built a wall not because we didn't care, but because we cared too much? There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to be seen. It doesn't need applause. It just exists. Quietly, steadily, like a heartbeat. And I think Lisa Marie carried that kind of strength. The kind people often misunderstand. Because when you don't explain yourself, when you don't perform your feelings, when you don't invite the world into your private grief, people start to assume things. They assume you're cold. They assume you don't care. They assume you're closed off. But I think strength doesn't always look warm. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like not giving the world more than it has earned. Lisa Marie didn't owe anyone her softness. And I think that's something that made people uncomfortable. Because the world often expects women, especially women in the public eye, to be endlessly open, endlessly emotional, endlessly available. But Lisa Marie didn't live that way. She lived inwardly. And I think there is a bravery in that. There is a courage in saying, I will not turn my inner life into entertainment. She felt deeply. She loved deeply. She grieved deeply. She just didn't perform it. And the world mistook that for distance. The world around Lisa Marie was always loud. Opinions, expectations, headlines, speculation, noise everywhere. And yet, her love was quiet. She loved without spectacle. She protected without announcements. She felt without needing witnesses. And that's a rare thing. Because we live in a world that often confuses loudness with sincerity. But love doesn't need volume. Lisa Marie loved her father deeply. Not as a myth, not as an icon, but as her dad. She loved her children with fierce devotion, not for how they looked to the world, but for who they were to her. She loved in a way that was protective, not performative. And I think that kind of love is often misunderstood too. Because when you don't post it, announce it, or display it, people assume it isn't there. But I think sometimes the deepest love is the quietest. The kind that lives in choices, in boundaries, in what you refuse to exploit. Lisa Marie didn't turn her love into a show. She lived it. I think one of the most remarkable things about Lisa Marie is that she stayed soft. Not publicly, not obviously, but inwardly. And I think that takes an enormous amount of courage. Because the world didn't always treat her gently. And when the world isn't gentle with you, you have two choices. You can harden, or you can protect your softness. And I think protecting your softness is harder. It means choosing compassion even when you're tired. It means choosing empathy when you've been misunderstood. It means continuing to feel in a world that rewards numbness. Lisa Marie didn't become cruel. She didn't become careless. She didn't become hardened. She became careful. And there is a difference. One of the reasons I wanted this to be the final episode for now, and not a goodbye forever, is because Lisa Marie's story doesn't feel complete in the way people often expect stories to be. Not neatly tied, not summed up, not reduced to a headline. Some lives don't close with a full stop. They linger. They echo. They leave quiet questions behind. And Lisa Marie's life feels like that to me. Not unfinished in a tragic sense, but unfinished in a human one. Because there are parts of her we will never fully know. And that's okay. Some people aren't meant to be fully explained. They're meant to be felt. I think sometimes the world becomes obsessed with understanding people in a way that feels invasive. As if we had owed explanations, as if we are owed answers, as if every private pain should be public. But Lisa Marie reminds me that not everything sacred needs to be exposed. Some stories deserve to remain partly quiet. Some hearts deserve privacy. Some truths are not for consumption. And that doesn't make them less meaningful. It makes them more meaningful. When I think about how Lisa Marie should be remembered, I don't think of scandals. I don't think of speculation. I don't think of noise. I think of a woman who lived inside enormous emotional weights, and still chose not to become cruel. I think of a daughter who loved her father not as the world did, but as a little girl does. I think of a mother who loved her children fiercely, not perfectly, not flawlessly, but sincerely. And I think of a person who didn't turn her pain into spectacle. She carried it quietly, and that matters. Because there is so much dignity in quiet survival. There is so much bravery in not letting bitterness win. There is so much strength in remaining tender in a hard world. Lisa Marie didn't live to perform. She lived to feel. And that kind of life leaves a different kind of legacy. A softer one, but a deeper one. I want to say something gently here. If you've ever been misunderstood, if you've ever been called distant when you're actually protecting yourself, if you've ever been told you're too much or not enough, if you've ever been judged for how you grieve, then I think, in some quiet way, you might understand Lisa Marie. And maybe that's why so many people feel a connection to her. Not because she was famous, but because she was human. Because she didn't fit neatly into expectations. Because she didn't perform her life for approval. Because she carried both softness and strength at the same time. And I think that combination is rare. I want to be very clear about something. This is not the end of talking about Lisa Marie. This is simply the end of this chapter. There will be more episodes in the future, more reflections, more gentle conversations, more moments where we return to a story with fresh eyes and softer understanding. Because some people aren't meant to be covered once and put away. They're meant to be revisited. With care, with growth, with new layers of compassion. And I believe Lisa Marie is one of those souls. So thank you for sitting with me through this series. Thank you for listening gently, for feeling deeply, for not rushing past the quiet parts. That matters more than you know. If there's one thing I hope you carry from this series, it's this. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it protects, sometimes it chooses silence over spectacle. And I think that kind of strength is beautiful. Lisa Marie showed us that. So this isn't goodbye, it's simply until we meet again. As always, my lovely friends, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and keep a little Elvis and Lisa magic in your hearts.